Americans had to be convinced by Mr. Jinnah,
Right.
and subsequently this went on for a long time. They didn't think Pakistan was an important state because their concentration was in Western Europe. They were building the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which was completed in 1949.
Yes.
And South Asia for them had no strategic importance at that time.
Right.
But in 1951, in these 3-4 years, Pakistan was lobbying all the time that we would do your bidding in South Asia as well as in the Middle East because we have cultural ties with the Middle East.
Right.
Okay, so this is all I put it in my book on Pakistan, the garrison state.
Right.
Okay, so in 51,
Korean War.
the Americans, then pay heed to the pleas of Pakistan, and Pakistan gets 10 million US aid, military aid.
Right.
Whereas Pakistan had submitted a bill of 2 billion, including so many tanks, and I have quoted the Americans saying that do the Pakistani think that dollars grow on trees? This is their statement. So at that time we got a very, very 0.5% of what we had wanted.
Yeah.
But by 54, when the Korean War had advanced
Yes.
and so on, we had the first military pact between the US and Pakistan.
Right.
And then 1959 again. But also 2 regional pacts, 55 and 54, CENTO and SEATO.
Yes.
So this is all part
Documented.
of the origin of Pakistan.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, do you think that Pakistan has also served the purpose? Because, you see, in 1962, for example, when Sino-Indian War was taking place, America gave generous aid to India, and Nehru was in fact a bit reluctant to receive that aid in the initial stages of the war. But then eventually he decided to take the aid because he found out that it wasn't India wasn't able to contain China without the American aid.
Correct.
So Pakistan has always been a partner which hasn't really been valued by Americans. Or do you think that because they were against the creation of Pakistan, because they thought that they needed India on their side, so did we get a raw deal that we shouldn't have been vying for in the first place?
First of all, both in 1954 and 1959, which are direct pacts between the US and Pakistan,
Yes.
the State Department each time issued a statement that US arms are not to be used in a war against India.
Right.
They are for the defense of Pakistan against communism.
Yes.
So it's very clear that the aid was given not to launch a war with India.
Or any other non-communist countries.
Yes. And the thing is, why were the Americans opposed to the creation of Pakistan? Because their experience of Asia came from China, where they were involved in supporting Kuomintang, whereas Mao Zedong was winning the civil war. And they feared that if communism emerges in China, they needed India as a united, strong, secular, democratic alternative. And for them, dividing India to create Pakistan would weaken such an India.
Right.
And you see, that has proven true after the collapse of the Soviet Union. And while we have had all these military pacts, they have gone directly and helped India become a nuclear, getting technology and all, despite the ban which exists. And you see, so their policy from day one was a united, secular, democratic India vis-a-vis the Chinese.
Right.
It could not be achieved while there was a Soviet Union. When it collapsed, they started courting the Indians. So that's
But then again, don't you see that, I mean, obviously there are some different views on Britain thought that Pakistan was more important? Because Britain
Let
also
me
had.
add one thing. Britain created Pakistan to prevent the spread of communism.
Yes.
Did we not serve that purpose when we were the frontline state in the so-called Afghan Jihad?
Yes, we were.
So the purpose given us was achieved
Yes.
in 1978.
Yes.
So this is
Yeah. So
this
Britain.
is proof
So this
of
is
British planning.
This is proof
here.
that British were right.
Yeah.
In that sense. But at
Right
the
or
same
wrong, I don't know, but this is what they wanted,
But
and
this
they
is
got
what
out
I
of
mean.
Pakistan.
When I say right, I mean that this is what they
Yes.
thought it would. This was the purpose of creating a Pakistan
Absolutely,
in this region, and that
absolutely,
is what they got.
absolutely.
But at the same time, don't you think that because there was a point when, for example, there is a point on the Durand line where Pakistan's border with Afghanistan and Soviet Union's border with Afghanistan were just 12 miles apart.
Yes.
Right. So, don't you think that this was Afghanistan, which was obviously tricky, at the same time volatile all the time? So, don't you think that the British were looking at this region's context, and they had been ruling this place, and they had been here for 300 years, so they understood the region better than the Americans, and therefore and you can't argue with that anymore because their policy eventually succeeded.
Absolutely. I mean, the British knew inside out of this region.
Yeah.
And you know, when the so-called Afghan Jihad was being conducted, they brought back retired British officers who had served in the tribal areas and all. And they were advising the Americans about what policy to adopt. So British hand was again there in 1978. Although the funding and overall leadership was with the CIA and with the Americans.
Okay, but have you recorded any evidence in your book or otherwise that where you can show Indian writers or Indian public intellectuals or Indian, for example, there is a letter to Uncle Sam by Manto. I think it's the 6th or 9th letter in which he says that I know that what you're going to do here, you're going to arm the militants here, and you are going to create a country where you can fight the Soviets, and he is talking about it. But do you see pre-partition any serious intellectuals or politicians talking about this conspiracy?
What I know is that in the Congress, Nehru and the leftists and the anti-imperialists were always leaning towards the Soviet Union.
Yes.
In 1936, I think that is where the whole problem starts with Jinnah and the breakthrough in the Punjab and Sindh and all, when as president of the Indian National Congress, Nehru declares that in future free India, we will abolish the Zimidari system and we will recast India in the light of the Soviet experiment of building socialism. And what we know subsequently is...
This sent alarm bells ringing.
Yes, that's what I've written in my book. Not only among the landlord class who found that their interest would be threatened, but also the British who had been conducting the great game since 1833.
Right. Exactly.
So for them, any possibility, although the thing is, the Soviet Union had been devastated in the Second World War. 27 million people Soviet citizens had been killed.
Yes.
Stalin, even if he wanted, was in no position to come southwards. But, you know, this is how the British mind worked.
Empires
Anti-Russian, anti-Soviet, attitude. So that's it.
Yeah. So you can't really see any public intellectuals, for example, writers, or for example, I quoted Manto, but this could be coming from some serious politicians as well.
Allama Iqbal, in his 1930 address at Allahabad, he says that we want a state in northern Muslim state, so. And then the British challenged him. They said, are you pleading pan-Islamism? So he wrote a letter which is published in the Times of London saying that how can the Muslims ever think of a state outside the British Empire? Rather, we would be the frontline state within the empire to be the first to face the hordes coming from the northwest. Now, he didn't specify, but at that time the hordes couldn't be Afghans who had been he meant the Soviet Union. So that is one point.
Because those were Turks as well, because they're not just Afghans, there are Uzbeks and other people who were part of the Soviet Union. But they were all part of the
Soviet Union by that time.
Yes, sir.
So it meant the Soviet Union. And Chaudhry Rahmat Ali, in his pleading in 1935, he writes a letter to the British Lords. It said, "My dear Lords." And then he says why Pakistan should be created. Now the interesting thing is that these very lords were central to the dismemberment of the Ottoman Empire. Why are you appealing to them? Why not the Labour Party? Why the most conservative sections of the British? So somewhere preventing a Soviet advance southwards must have been there. Apart from there, I have not found any evidence. I'm sure there is, but I have not had the opportunity to see it. You know, when the Hijrat movement took place,
yes,
some of the people crossed the border and
during the Khilafat movement,
and they reached Moscow and met Stalin and Lenin. By that time, I think was either dead or they might have met him as well. And they came back and became the harbingers of the communist ideology. And you find the British repressing them many times, you know. Bhagat Singh also was a leftist.
yes,
Ghadar party challenging them. They were crushed by the British. So any vestige of communism getting planted in the subcontinent was smashed by the British. So there is no doubt that there was a very strong inspiration drawn by these Muslims. I remember many of them. I've met some of those people, Dada, Amir Haider, and many others.
right.
They were committed leftists and led lives like true communists. Nobody went for property. So there was a very strong commitment, absolutely.
And the British really feared that commitment.
Yes, and among Hindus as well, and Sikhs as well.
Yes.
Yes.
So very, very fascinating. So thank you, Dr. Saab, for this particular segment, and I hope that you enjoyed this. I am certain that there will be more people coming forward and commenting in this section, or maybe pointing to some evidence that we might have overlooked. And I'm sure that this is a subject that many people have looked at, but it is not as much explored in the intelligentsia or the academia in India and Pakistan. When we talk about the partition, we generally talk about the communal angle, but we mostly overlook the international, what we call the...
I haven't.
You haven't. No, what I'm saying is that mostly, largely, they're talking about Jinnah, they're talking about Gandhi, they're talking about All India Muslim League, the Congress, but they're never talking about the British and the Russians who were playing
or the Americans,
who had the biggest role to play in whatever outcome came forward.
Absolutely, the British had. Yes.
So thank you for watching, and stay tuned to New Wave History.